All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott Golden, also known as the Golden Boy. I'm live here with Jeff Shank. And Jeff, just so everybody knows, you and I are friends. We're just not, we haven't known each other for an extensive amount of time, but I did meet you in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in 2018, correct? In October?
Correct, yeah.
And then we saw each other again at the World Pickleball Open, which was in December. I didn't get time to speak with you that much. You were running around organizing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I was a little busy then. So
yeah, I could tell. I didn't want to bug you.
Yeah, it was great seeing you again.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I do want to just mention to everybody that you and I are going to be unveiling something that's going to be big for the pickleball world here live on the Golden Boy Pickleball Show. And neither of us have any details at the moment. And
that's correct. And just so people know, because I don't want a lot of your listeners to tune out, this isn't about me or anything. You're not really interviewing me. I'm just kind of here, kind of providing a little bit of information about this.
Correct. Yeah. So that is the deal. And quite honestly, Jeff's not interviewing me. I'm not interviewing him. We're kind of like a two-person panel who's going to be just basically reading. I'm going to be reading. Okay, actually, the email just came in. So I'm going to be reading this PDF file live for you and everybody else. And as it unfolds, it's going to be hopefully make sense to everybody as they're listening, including you and I. And then I just want you and I at the end of it to just discuss what we've read and what we've seen. So also I want to mention Raymond Tarnowski says, "Hey, Jeff." So I don't know if you know Raymond, but
hey, Raymond, how you doing?
He also said patience is a virtue, so I'm not sure. But okay, so here we go. I'm going to open this up live. Guys, I'm seeing this for the first time, just as you are and as well as Jeff. So here we go. The PDF starts out. It says, "The Golden No Swerve Rec Pickleball Challenge for the people." Emphasis on no swerve and for the people. So basically what that means, no swerve means it's going to be a head-on challenge. And you know, as if two cars were going head to head, if one of them were to swerve out of the way, that would be what the swerve is. But this is called the no swerve challenge. And it's for the people. So it's for the people of pickleball. So here we go. All matches and exact alignments have been made based on patterns amounting to what the people want to see collectively across the board. Certain matchups should speak to you as wanting to be watched for the people. There are 3 uncategorized matchups. The remaining rec matchups fall primarily into one of the following 3 categories. Number 1 category, women's. Number 2 category, technical matchups. And the 3rd category, no holds bar, no swerve. Okay. And again, the swerve thing means no backing out, no getting out of the way. You're going to go head to head, head on. Okay. Right. To the redemption in rec, it means the competitor who did not prevail automatically can say rematch. Okay. Lob within is defined as a ball that reaches at least 7 feet at its height, at its highest point, and doesn't land in the opponent's kitchen. Okay. Uncategorized rec matches. Scott Golden, Belinda Zabiden, Tanya Major, Corinne Carr, format 3 games to 15. Golden Boy plays mixed with each one, with each one game, and then at the end, he chooses which game he had the most fun in. He will simply pick game 1, 2, or 3, and never be allowed to further give any explanation. This is to keep it fun and in anticipation of no holds bar intensity. Okay, so basically what I'm understanding there in uncategorized rec game matchup number 1 is that I'll play 3 rec games with each of the ladies, and then I'll pick one of those ladies. Don't have to give an explanation. All right, number 2, uncategorized rec matchups. Yoda, who's in his 70s, versus Prim Carnot, early 50s. 2 out of 3. 2/3 full court singles on a pickleball court with some issues. I don't know. I'm not sure what the some issues is, but okay. Number 3, Soren Bojica versus Eden Lika. Special, no swerve, 4 out of 7 to 11, immediately followed by a push-up contest. No right to rematch, unlimited timeouts, the Romanian national anthem and flag. This is the battle for Romanian pride. Once and for all, there has been too much talk. Now it's time. The rubber meets the road. So Soren and Eden are, from what I understand, are both Romanian pickleball players. And I know from my personal experience that they have both had some words and exchanged some healthy respect for each other in a competition. So that's one of the matchups. All right, here's the women's rec matchups. Tanya Major versus Corinne Carr, 2/3 cross court with forehand, right to redemption, 1 game to 15 straight across. Michelle Esquivel versus Belinda Zabiden, 2 out of 3 straight across, no right to redemption. And I think when it's the no right to redemption, that means that you're not allowed to get a rematch, is what I understand, or to play them again if you lose. All right. Adina Jones versus Michelle Esquivel, half-court singles, 2 out of 3 to 11. Game 1, all third shots must be a lob. Ooh, that's interesting. All right, technical matchups. Matthew Blum versus Morgan Evans. 3 games to 11. First game, 1, half-court cross-court. Game 2, half-court straight across. Game 3, full-court singles. No holds bar, especially on the serve. Will also be voting poll by Scott Lippitz, regardless of who won or lost, who the viewing audience believes had the better serve overall on that day. Number 2 is Aspen Kern versus Dave Weinbach versus Brian Staub versus Aspen Kern. Half court, cross court on odds, backhand, sideline, and forehand in the middle. No voting, just let the backhand cross court games talk. 2/3, no rights to redemption. So what I'm gathering, Jeff, is that these matchups are specific to people's skill sets, right? In other words, it's a head-to-head matchup, it looks like. For example, the Aspen Kern versus Dave Weinbach and Brian Staub versus Aspen Kern, those are certain skill sets that each one of them have that we're going to see head-to-head who has the better skills.
I would assume that's what they're looking at.
That's what it sounds like to me. The no holds barred, all no holds barred matches are straight across the net, half court singles, no swerving to your opponent's partner allowed. Okay. All games are presumed no holds barred, anything goes. Competitive and of the highest intensity for the people. No surrenders, no swerves, unless otherwise noted. It's 2 out of 3 to 11, automatic right to redemption, 1 game to 15. Bring the grown man games, all to be played with new, unworn outdoor balls, fast and hard play. In fast conditions, no dumbed down, slowed down pickleball speed because of the high heat or dead balls. If hot heat due in the morning or evening. Oh, if there's hot heat, you will do the games in the morning or in the evenings, not in the heat of the day. Everyone is presumed to be friends, or maybe in some cases actually not, until they step on the battlefield. And then the people don't want to see friends. They want to see skills and or passions collide. Intensity. Opponents can win by battle or by default opponent swerve/surrender. The pickleball people favor the brave, no holds bar men. So basically what I'm gathering with that one is that you're going to go like head to head, toe to toe with the opponent. And if you swerve or surrender, meaning like you go away from that opponent to the other person, you would consider being, losing. Okay. This is the no holds bar matchups. Steve Wong versus Enrique Ruiz. First, third shot of each point must be a lob all games. The next matchup is Kyle Yates versus Ben Johns. Marcin Respetsky versus Steve Deacon. Jeff Warnick versus Eden Lika. Pat Kane versus Chile.
Yep, you got it, Chile.
All right, Chile. And then Zane Affleck versus Riley Newman. Chris Miller versus Dave Weinbach. Tyler Loon versus Tyson McGuffin, Chris Miller versus Tyson McGuffin, Scott Moore versus Dave Weinbach, and then the last matchup it looks like is Enrique Ruiz, El Condor, and Marcin Respetsky versus Steve Wong and Dave Weinbach. That'd be a good matchup. All right, so that looks like the end of it. That looks like the matchup. So basically, that was. Let's recap real quick because I know that was. I read that verbatim, but let's just give a quick recap. It's basically 3 categories: women's, technical matchups, and no holds barred, no swerve. And it looks like the creator of this event, is wanting specific matchups that the people of pickleball would like to see. Is that what you gathered?
That's what it seems like to me. Either really exciting matches or some grudge matches that are in there, which could, people want to bring their popcorn to. So
absolutely. Okay, and you need to maybe help me with some clarification on who some of these people are. Like let's talk about. I do know who Belinda Zabiden is. I know Tanya Major. I know Corinne Card. But let's talk about like Chili Chalele or whatever. Who is Chili Chalele?
Well, Chili and Pat Kane, those are 2 people that most people don't know. And that's one of the reasons why I was asked to be here, because I've been playing for 15 years. And I know I've played against Pat Kane and Chili back in 2009. I played against them at Nationals. Pat Kane, probably back in 2009, was the most legendary player out there in 2009. I believe in 2009, I believe he won 5 gold medals. I believe the only medal that he did not win was open singles. I believe that's the only medal he did not win in
wow,
in 2009. Legendary player, very controversial, huge ex-firefighter, very intimidating. He was kind of known back in the day back then, it was very common for player, because in 2009, for a couple of years, Nationals, it was open and age group. There was no 3.0. So if you were a 3.0, you could never win a match. Okay. I mean, you probably would never win a match.
The likelihood would not be good.
Right. Then the U.S. Open came in and said, okay, well, we're going to break these age groups down. So it'll be 50-54, 3.0, 50-54, 3.5. That wasn't back in the first couple Nationals. So Pat Kane's kind of claim to fame is he would win a lot of medals, and he absolutely was a great player, but he would kind of pick and choose. I mean, he was probably late 60s back then, and he would pick an age group. So he would play in 50-54 men's doubles. Or because that was the easiest, that was considered the easiest doubles out there, men's 50-54 at that time, because there was very few players in that group. So it was, although he was a great player, he could kind of boost his resume by winning 5 golds out of 6 at the Nationals.
Okay.
So Chili was a very, very controversial player, and when he and Pat Kane got together, Pat Kane was kind of known a little bit of a Chris Miller, where not the most nice doubles player to play with. If you made a mistake, Pat Kane would just get on Chili like crazy. So
really,
that's kind of why whoever put these together is putting Pat Kane against Chili, because they played together for several years. Both great players, but one giving the other one a hard time.
Very interesting. Now, do you know if any of these players that we mentioned, like Pat Kane and Chili, do you know if they still play actively right now? Do you know if they're still in pickleball? Or
I'm assuming Chili does. I haven't seen either one of them for a while, but I mean, for us old school people that were around in pickleball back when those guys were playing, 10 years ago, we would be very, very interested in seeing those guys play again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of nostalgia with pickleball. I think you and I, just before we went live, we were talking off camera about just back in 2009, 2010, when somebody like Kyle Yates was just kind of coming on the scene, and how you were kind of a facilitator of some of the matchups back then. Talk real quick, because I don't think a lot of people realize how extensive you are involved with pickleball and for how long now. I mean, many, many years you've been involved with pickleball, but you were telling me like you were the first to kind of put together like the pro exhibitions. Did some of these players that we mentioned, did some of those players come to these events?
Well, I started playing in the Villages in 2005, and the Villages was, you know, a great place to play pickleball.
Yeah.
And so right around 2012, 2013, I started the Villages, the pro exhibition, because I went to nationals in 2009, 2010, saw all these great players. So for people that don't know, 2009, 2010, if you weren't from the West Coast, you had very little chance of winning an Open. I mean, all the good players were from out the West Coast. So I was very impressed by these players and their skill levels, and I wanted to bring those skills to Florida,
to the East Coast.
So that our locals could see, you know, the incredible play was out there. So I started this pro exhibition. It was very, very easy back then because people weren't making, you know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 at a tournament. They weren't making, you know, $100 an hour in coaching and stuff. So it was very easy for me to attract the best players in the world to come and put on what we called the pro exhibition. We were the first ones to do this. Everybody loved it. The locals loved it. The pros loved it. Pros were very disappointed when they got called one year. They didn't get invited the next year because, you know, maybe Kyle was, you know, he was coming into his own back then, and he came in. A really quick funny story is Brian Staub, who won nationals, I think in 2013. You know, the first time that a non-West Coast team had won at nationals. So Brian was always in our pro exhibition, and he had a problem with the pro exhibition. It might have been around 2016 or so. And he said, Jeff, I can't make it. I can't, there's one day I've got to be away for a softball tournament, but there's this young guy that I've seen. His name is Ben Johns. He's the real, trust me, he's the real deal. I think Ben was 17 at that point.
Oh my goodness.
And I went home and I told my wife, hey, you know, Brian has told us about this young 17-year-old guy nobody ever heard of, Ben Johns. He says he's a real deal. My wife goes, there's no way some 17-year-old kid can come in and compete against these top players. So as it turned out, you know, he could and went on to probably be the best player out there. So
unbelievable. You know, and you remember seeing him at that time when he first kind of got into the sport?
I had never even heard his name at that point. Brian is the one that said, there's this young guy I've seen, because I'd never even heard his name.
Wow.
But you need to, he should come and replace me because I can't play on Sunday. So invite him to come and play on Sunday, which he did. And he came for several years after that.
Wow.
But that, you know, the reason a lot of people know me from back then in the, you know, 2009, 2010, 11, 12, 13 is because I put on the pro exhibition, because I was rubbing elbows with all the best players in the world. So all the best players back then knew me and wanted to be invited to the pro exhibition. Plus I was the first Scott Golden. In 2010, I was the very first person that started videotaping nationals and putting it on YouTube. So for 2010, 2011, I videotaped those, and I did that long enough where other Joey Valenti then kind of could do it a little bit better. So I do a lot of stuff in the background for pickleball. I'm on the rules committee. I've been on the national referee committee. So I do a lot of stuff in the background that people don't know about me, but pickleball is my absolute passion. So, and that's one of the reasons why I got invited by whoever's putting this together to come and give a little bit of information about what kind of went back in the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the funny thing is I had seen your videos from back, because I got quickly obsessed with pickleball when I found it at the end of 2016. So I absolutely started looking on YouTube and different things. And you were the first YouTube channel that I recognized as being somebody who broadcasted or put up video footage of some of the pros playing at nationals and Grand Canyon State Game, although whatever the time frame was back then where you guys played at those tournaments. So I absolutely know you've been around a long time and have a lot of insight to the sport itself and the players. let's go back real quick. I'm liking some of these matchups. So like Yoda versus Prim Carnot. I mean, that sounds like a great matchup to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, Yoda, Pickleball Hall of Fame, probably won as many medals as anybody out there. I think people want to see that against Prem because, the pickleball guru, because I don't like to talk ill of people, but Prem he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, especially instructors, because I think the general thought out there is he charges a lot of money for his lessons and he doesn't really play competitive anymore. So, I mean, that would kind of him playing against Yoda, who's, probably 20 years his senior. Yoda's got to be in his 70s, would be a great matchup and, might put Prem's skills to the test there.
I definitely think so because I've seen Yoda play in a tournament in the last probably year or so, and he was still very competitive at a high level. Interesting to see that matchup for sure.
Just so people know how far the sport has come. The first modern day nationals, which was 2009, he and Pat Kane won nationals, and they were both had to be in their 60s, late 60s, mid 60s back then.
And that would have been around 2009.
2009 was the first modern day nationals.
Which has always been put on by the USAPA, correct? That's always been their tournament.
Yes. Nationals. What I deem as nationals is USAPA nationals, always out in Arizona, always in the November timeframe. That started in 2009. And that was the first big tournament that I went to. Was 2009 nationals.
Wow, that shows you right there, honestly, how far the sport's come.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
can you imagine two mid 60-year-old guys winning, winning nationals today? Open.
No way.
Back then there was no senior open or open. It was one. You could play open, and you could play age group. That's it. So if you played 50-54. There was no, like I said before, that was considered 50-54 5.0. So you could play open and age group. That was it.
Oh man, that's incredible. I guess I hear a lot of talk when somebody gets around 49 years old that they start getting excited about being able to play 50 plus. So I'm guessing that's why that got put in, because eventually the younger crowd, like the Kyle Yates and the Ben Johns, started to come on board and make it very difficult.
Yep. I think we've had senior for about 5 years now, open and senior open for about 5 years now, just because, it was a waste of money if you were, 60 years old or even 55 or even 50 to have a chance of winning against, Kyle or Ben or any of the Matt Wright, any of the,
those type of players
nowadays.
When you watch them play now at, say, the 2020 Nationals or 2019 Nationals, I mean, does it just make your jaw drop a little bit just watching the play and how I don't want to call it flawless because they do make mistakes, but it just feels like you have to be so on your A game the whole time. You can't let up or you're not going to come out on top.
Well, nowadays it's so much more exciting than back 2009, 2010, because almost every point, it was not unusual to have 60 dink rallies every single time, which, that's nice, but it's so much more exciting nowadays. The balls that people are be able to get back, how quick the players are. And we were talking earlier about one of my biggest things that I'm so happy about is there's so many young people coming in the sport in the last couple of days. When I first started playing in 2005, I would say 90% of the players were 50 and above. You didn't have any of the young people in the sport nowadays, but it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because, if you've got people that say, hey, why don't you go play that pickleball game? First of all, it's got the funny name, which turns it off to young people. And second of all they do is see old gray-haired white men out there playing pickleball. Why would I want to go play an old person's sport?
Right.
Now you've got, the Kyle and the Ben and the Matt out there, the young, healthy, athletic guys that train, Tyson, are out there playing. And it's oh, hey, I want to go do that. And it's just a self-fulfilling thing. Once you get young people in, more young people see it and more people come in. And that just I mean, if you take the people that won the first national, not even one national. If you take the top 10 players back in 2009, they wouldn't be in the top 200 nowadays. Most of them.
Man.
It's just, the skill level is just unbelievable what it is now.
Would you ever thought that you would see a mother in her 40s and a daughter that's 13 winning women's nationals at the biggest tournament in the world? I mean, how crazy was that?
No, I mean, when I first started seeing Rachel Elliott play when she was like, 14 or 15, I thought that was just amazing. Somebody that young. But you look at Anna Lee, and it drives me crazy. I probably shouldn't even say this because I hold some posts with the USAPA, so I don't want them getting pissed at me. But I heard rumors that somebody in the organization wanted to do away with, if you weren't 17, you couldn't play in an adult tournament, which means Anna Lee couldn't come and play, which is, how is that good for the sport? I've always been a proponent of whatever's good for the sport, that's what we should do.
That's right.
Should we do away with the Ernie? Absolutely not. It makes the sport,
what it is.
What it is. Should we do away with the Nasty Nelson? No, because it makes the sport exciting. Should we do away with hitting your opponent in the chest? Well, that's part of the game. So when you get a bunch of old, and I'm almost 66. So when I'm talking about old gray-haired white guys, I'm talking about myself. I want what's good for the sport, and telling somebody like Anna Lee you can't play at the top pro level because you're 13 or 14 years old is ridiculous. That
is, and I agree, and I think it's such an important thing to have somebody like you on the board or in important positions to continue to push for those things that are best for the sport. Shifting gears real quick, I just wanted to let you know that there's a couple of people commenting. Mark Stimmerman, who I'm good friends with, Mark said, "Hi, my neighbor Jeff." So he recognizes you as his neighbor, so that's cool. I guess in the village.
What's up, Crazy Mark?
Crazy Mark. He also says Jeff Shank, the man who named the Ernie shot. Is that true?
I kind of believe so. I mean, when we went each year, we went to nationals. We tried to bring a shot back to our local people. So in 2009, we came back with what we called the Arizona Pop, which are dinking, and then all of a sudden you pop a quick one right down the middle for a winner. We called that the Arizona Pop because we had never seen that before. That's the shot we saw. So in 2010, when Coach Mo was playing with Phil Bagley, and they were playing against Ernie Perry, and I believe from what I heard in the last week or so, it was Tim Hatzenberg, right? I forget
Hatzenbeller.
Okay. So I was watching this match because, Coach Mo and Phil Bagley were local guys from Florida. So I was watching their match, and I kept seeing this guy doing what we call the Ernie nowadays. He did it against Mo at least 12 times during this match. Mo just kept dinking right straight across from him, and Ernie kept doing the shot. So we brought that shot back and we said, hey, this is what we're calling the Ernie and we
Ernie
taught
Perry
everybody local about it because we had never seen that shot before.
Right.
I in no way believe that Ernie was the inventor of this shot. It's just that we saw it, and for some reason,
it stuck.
The name stuck.
So
he wasn't
the first one to ever create that shot.
No, he wasn't the creator of it. It's just that we saw him do it, and we were amazed with it. So we went back to Florida in 2010 after nationals and said, hey, we're going to teach you guys. It's just like we taught them the Arizona Pop. We're going to teach you this shot. And we've named it the Ernie because after the match, I went over and said, well, who's that guy doing that crazy shot? And they said, oh, well, that's Ernie Perry. So that's where that came from. I believe that's how the name came about. I've been saying that for a number of years, and nobody has said, no, Jeff, you're wrong. So.
Well, I recently taught a little piece on the Ernie shot at the Pickleball Summit, which was put on by Brett Knoll. And I love the Ernie shot. I do it a lot. I think it's a great weapon to have in your tool bag when you play against people. And I'm particularly pretty good at it because I'm pretty athletic and I have good instincts and all that.
I've seen you play.
Okay, so
I've seen your videos.
Yeah. So, I feel like that's a shot that kind of fits in my wheelhouse. But I did make sure to do a little homework on that. And that's what I discovered as well, is that Ernie Perry was not known as being the inventor or creator of the shot. He was just the first one to do it, like you said, at nationals to where it got recognized by you and some other people. And then it started circulating that it's the Ernie. Plus, I think he spells his name ERNE, which is how I've always known that it should be said.
Yep.
Or
That's
spelled.
yep.
Okay.
ERNE, yep. And Ernie's been in the villages visiting with me many times. You know, a lot of people have come to the villages because we have 200 pickleball courts and we have a lot of great players there. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I've been once. I've been one time.
Yeah,
and I had a good time. So, unfortunately, you weren't out there playing that day, or you weren't on the same courts as me that day. I don't know where I ended up.
No, I was up in Indiana then.
Okay, gotcha. Well, before we wrap this up, Jeff, because I know you've got things to do and I do too, but let's talk real quick about a couple of the matchups still that I want to go back through. Like, I want to go back through this list right here. You've got Steve Wong versus Enrique Ruiz. I think that would be a great matchup. I personally would love to see that.
Absolutely. Both, again, guys that still have great skills, but they were probably the number one team back in 2010, 2011. They played together as partners and won nationals several times. So it would be good to see them
very good
against each other. For
sure. And I know Enrique, he has a very unique style with both. He uses both of his hands. And I wanted to ask you real quick on a side note with Enrique, what was it true? I think he confirmed this, but I just want to hear your perspective. Was it true at one time in the sport there was no rule against having two paddles? I think is what it was.
Yep, and that's why we instituted the one paddle rule, because he is ambidextrous, and he was for many years he was probably the best singles player, and large wingspan, ambidextrous, and he went out. This was, I don't know, probably 2013 or so. He went out with two paddles and wanted to play that way. And the tournament director says, no, you can't. And he says, well, show me in the rules where it says I can't. And there was no rule at that point. He did not get to play with two paddles. But that's why we put in the rules that there is in the rule right now that you can only play with one paddle. And that's because he did go out and do that. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. Well, I mean, I think a lot of the things that are in the rule book these days that people, when they come into the sport, they go like, well, why would that even need to be in there? Shouldn't you just assume that one paddle would be used? Not necessarily. Yep. When somebody like
when somebody says, show me in the rule book where I can't, well, because the default is if it's not against the rules,
you can do it.
You can probably do it. Absolutely.
And you may get away with it that tournament, but ultimately you might be the reason that they come up with a new rule.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So far, I think you guys in the rule book has covered a vast majority of the things that need to be covered. However, there is still, I would say, the one harping thing that always comes up with the rule book is that there's some things that are not always clarified or very easily understood. And maybe that's where some people say, well, that should either be taken out or have more clarification. So I don't know. I think you guys do a great job.
Well, I can tell you that the main changes in the current rule book, the 2020 rule book, the vast majority of changes that were made for the current one were language changes, not changing the rules, but trying to clarify the language that's in there so that people didn't have misconceptions about things.
Do you guys?
We are getting better, and we are getting professional proofreaders so that it does make sense to people, because sometimes it makes sense to the 5-person rules committee, but it doesn't make sense. And just so people know, the rules committee is not a dictatorship. So we put out a list of suggestions. It goes out to top people, all certified referees. They give us feedback back. Then it goes to the USAPA board, and the board has the ultimate, yes or no. And sometimes we get things from the board that we may not like, but the board says, yep, it's going to be in there. And a lot of times we get votes 3-2. That's why we're a 5-person board. A lot of times our board has votes that are 3-2.
That are 3-2
and just so people know, we are actively trying to get more young people on the rules committee.
Yeah, you and I talked about that.
Yeah. That's kind of a thing for me. Is I don't like when people say, well, the rules committee, it's just a bunch of old white people. So, you try to change. So Yeah, so we're trying to. I mean, we got Simone on last year. There's a new opening that's this year. We're trying to get young, well-known, professional players
on the rules
the
committee.
board.
That's fantastic. I love to hear that, and I think that's going to be good for the sport as well. Like I said, I don't want to take too much of your time. Let's talk about a couple more matchups. Jeff Warnick versus Edin Lika. Do you know both of those players? Okay, I'll tell you.
Jeff Warnick, yeah, but yeah.
But Edin,
no.
okay, so Edin is a 6'6", 240-pound Romanian player.
Oh, okay.
He's sponsored with Monarch, so he's Dick's Sporting Goods sponsors him, and he's a very, very good singles player and getting better at doubles. He actually took bronze at the U.S. Nationals in November with Andre Danescu, which was another Romanian. They actually lost to Steve Deacon and Eric Lang, I think. Lang, he's a big, tall guy too. But what I want to get clarification on some of this stuff is, are these one-on-one matchups? That's what I'd like to know. Like, because I think it looks like that's head-to-head, Jeff Warnick versus Edin Lika.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of these, because a lot of them are half-court singles straight across. I mean, that was – I was trying to write stuff down as you were talking with it.
So it's like skinny singles, basically. Skinny singles.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which, back in the day, that was kind of to consider. That was one of the things that could kind of prove who was the best player out there was playing skinny singles. Because when you play doubles, if you're a really, really good player and your opponent's, if you're the best player in the world and your opponent's, fourth or fifth, they're going to hit every single shot to your partner.
It's easy to isolate the player out. That's better.
Yeah. If you're playing skinny singles, I mean, a lot of doubles play comes in there. A lot of the shots that you could do in doubles still transfer to skinny singles. So that would have a lot to do with, who's even a better double player. Yeah,
and I think the idea of the skinny singles is interesting because you can't just blow the ball by somebody. You have to kind of work some strategy into that. And so I think these matchups, it's isolating. I think I said this earlier, but it's almost isolating two players in our sport that are very good at what they do, their craft, if you will. And it's really saying toe-to-toe, head-to-head, who's going to be the superior player.
Yeah.
And I personally
absolutely. Who's better?
I love that.
Yep, I do too. I think there's some really good matchups here.
Yeah, I mean, you got another one here, Enrique Ruiz and Marcin Respetsky versus Steve Wong and Dave Weinbach. The only issue I see with that one is that Marcin's coming back off of knee surgery.
Yeah.
And he's had a couple.
I don't know how healthy he is yet.
I saw something he posted the other day about, he's still coming back through recovery and rehab and stuff. So that might be a matchup that may not happen for a little while. What about Scott Moore versus Dave Weinbach? I find that to be interesting, right? Because Dave Weinbach is technically a senior player now.
Yeah, two seniors, yeah.
But he still plays down a lot. So I wonder, like, that, to me, that's a great one-on-one matchup.
Yeah, Scott has been the dominant senior player for many, many years. So and Dave's been right up there too. So that would be a very interesting matchup. I'd love to see that one.
For sure. Have you seen, kind of on a quick side note, have you seen this guy, Paul Olin? Do you know who I'm talking about? He's from the Northeast. Paul Olin has come on the senior tour and just has been demolishing people, including Scott Moore. He beat Scott Moore handedly in December at the World Pickleball Championships in
singles?
In singles in Punta Gorda. And he also, I think, won in doubles as well, maybe. No, he lost in doubles, in mixed doubles. He lost to Scott. But my point is, there's some guys like that are coming on the scene that I thought would never be able to take down like a Scott Moore or somebody like that. But man, the game is just rapidly changing every time we see.
That's the great thing about pickleball. I mean, it sounds crazy, but a lot of I won't name names, but a lot of the top players nowadays, 10 years from now, people won't even know who they were. That's how explosive I think that the sport is going to get.
For sure. And I'll tell you where I noticed the biggest change, and I won't go too deep into it, but When I got into sport 3.5 years ago, the people that were winning at the top level were like Sarah Ansberry, Christine McGrath, I'm just some of these ladies and stuff like that. And I started noticing that after a year or two after I got into the sport, that some of the people started training and started really taking it serious. And all of a sudden, Sarah Ansberry wasn't winning as many tournaments. And I'm not singling her or Christine or anybody out. I'm just saying I noticed that their names weren't getting on the top of the podium as much. And then I started seeing like Sarah created like a brand for herself, and she started getting more into the teaching side. And so she recognized like, holy cow, the younger generation's coming in. And now you've got somebody like Anna Lee Waters at 13. She's competing at the highest level. Like
unbelievable.
Insane. Yeah. But that's when I noticed about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever I started seeing some of the top names not be on the top of the podium as much.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know Adina Jones. I don't know if you've even heard of her.
No, I wanted to talk about that one. I wanted to talk about that. What's the deal with that?
She's probably 2013 or so. She was probably one of the dominant female and mixed players.
Okay.
She was the first female player that I saw that could hold her own, where the mixed male could not they couldn't isolate her like they could in the past. She was the first one that if the male tried to poach too much, she would burn them.
Oh, so she was very aggressive in her nature, mentality wise.
Yep. And she's somebody that was around for like 3 years, and I haven't heard at all probably in the last 5 years or so.
Adina Jones. Was she, I mean, because I have no idea who that is. Was she already, what age was she roughly?
She was probably, I don't want her to get upset with me if she hears this. I would guess.
I mean, let's 20s. Just say, in her 20s?
Yeah. She was late. She was young.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. And then,
like I say, she was the first one that could make the poachers pay for it. And they couldn't poach against her.
You know what I've always said, Jeff, about mixed doubles is that I am not the only one to say this, but I say it a lot. I find myself saying it a lot. In mixed, you're only as strong as your female counterpart, right? And what I boil it down to is it's their confidence to be able to hit behind the guy and let that guy know, like, you can't just do whatever you want on the court and get away with it. The ones that I've seen have the most success are able to keep that guy honest and keep him over there from getting too involved.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why she had such great success in mixed.
Sure,
because she would make the guy pay.
Yeah, and Tanya Major is another one that I feel like is aggressive like that. She's not afraid to go at the guy. She's not afraid to go behind the guy.
She's been around a long time too.
Oh yeah. Oh, Tanya's been around 20 plus years, right?
Yep.
Incredible. I know her husband doesn't play quite as much anymore. I think he's kind of plays locally, but I don't think he travels to tournaments. But I did see
he used to travel a lot. He was invited to the pro exhibition many years ago we had in the villages.
Very cool. Very cool. What about Brian Staub and Aspen Kern? Let's see. I'm trying to understand this one exactly because it says Aspen Kern versus Dave Weinbach versus Brian Staub versus Aspen Kern. I wonder if that means two different matchups: Aspen Kern versus Dave, and then Brian versus Aspen.
I would assume so. I would assume those are two different matches. Brian's just so steady. Brian's one of the steadiest players I've seen. I played against Brian thousands of times in the villages, and he likes to toy with you. He likes to get in no man's land and just hit drop shot into the non-volley zone as you're hitting it hard at him. He just drops it, and he just loves to play with people.
I love it.
He's very, very steady.
For anybody that doesn't, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead? Well, I was just saying that for anybody that doesn't know who you're talking about, he's the guy out of the villages that wears a cutoff sleeves, and he's got some tattoos, and he's a guy who looks like kind of intimidating, but he is a nice guy though. He is a nice guy. But he
and his partner Brian's from villages in Florida. He and his partner Phil Bagley, also from South Florida, they were the first team that was not a West Coast team to win nationals. They won it, I think, right around 2013 or so.
Wow.
They were the first team to win nationals that was not a West Coast team.
That's incredible. Yeah, they were kind of I remember. See, I've watched all these matches from old videos that you've posted from that time frame, that era. I know he's still a phenomenal player. I've seen Brian at some of the recent tournaments, and he
both
does
in
very
singles
well.
and doubles. Both in
Absolutely.
singles and doubles. Yep.
Talk about real quick Chris Miller, because Chris Miller's another one that's like a longtime veteran, savvy player. Come a long way in the sport. I think he's now in the senior division. By the way, he doesn't look 50 plus to me. Just for whatever reason.
No, he doesn't, unless he's got his gray beard that he's showing.
If he's sporting the gray beard, maybe. Yeah. But talk about him real quick and his type of style and how he would do in some of these matchups.
A little bit of a hothead. When we invited him to the Villages Pro Exhibition, the caveat was, you gotta play nice. I mean, we're not the Pro Exhibition. A lot of it was all out, but it was a lot to have fun. I mean, at the Pro Exhibition, we didn't have medals or anything, so that's another reason why people like to come, because it was a fun, non-competitive time. Although most of the points were full out, but Chris, he was a little bit of a hothead and not the most kind to his partner sometime, especially with his female partner, and partner misses a shot and he could throw his paddle down, call timeout. And so a little bit of a hothead, but off the court, a really, really nice guy.
I think my follow-up question to what you said was, did Chris Miller behave at the pro-ams?
He did.
Okay.
He did.
So he behaved. I've actually interviewed Chris Miller. Great guy, was very, very insightful. Been around the game a long time, and yeah, I mean, some of these guys, you just don't realize how long they've been playing the game of pickleball. You included, right? I mean, you've been playing for a long time.
15 years.
15 years, and yeah. I know we just said this, but like the game has to have, in your mind, watching it now, has to have completely done a 180 as far as,
especially in the last 2 or 3 years. It just the offense, the defense, the overheads the players can get back. I mean, you look at Simone, the shots that she's able to get back is unbelievable, and it's kind of funny because many men, we talk about Chris Miller. Way back when, we were kind of talking about men against women and things of that nature, and he would kind of laugh that any woman could be, anywhere near. I'd probably get in trouble for saying this, but but we're on a an entertainment channel here, so
that's right.
He kind of poo-pooed any woman being able to be in the top 50 of any man. Well, that's that may not be. You look at Simone. Simone's pretty darn good.
Woo, boy, I tell you,
women's doubles or mixed doubles, she holds her own. You pick on Simone in mixed, and she'll give it back to you. So
absolutely,
it's impressive. Yeah.
Well, if you go back and look at Simone's early days playing at tournaments, if you go to pickleballtournaments.com, I had heard this rumor, I thought was a rumor or a story, that she played in a men's singles open pro division, or it was either 5.0 or open pro, when she first got into the sport, and she was the only female, and she cleaned house. She beat everybody in that whole bracket. And I went back and looked, and I'm pretty confident I saw that it was true. Like, I saw the tournament that she played in like that. So I think she can very well hold her own against any of the guys out there.
I forget who it was. It was a top 5 pro male player that when she was first coming on, he was saying he would play singles against her, and he was saying she's the real deal. I have to go 1,000% to have any chance at all. And he was a top 5 player. I forget who it was, but he had mentioned that to me before I had even seen her.
That's incredible. I've got a quick funny story on Simone and how great she is. And then we'll wrap it up. But I went down before the U.S. Open in 19, before 2019. So I came down about 3 weeks early to get acclimated to the weather and everything. And I got invited to, I don't know how, but I got invited to play with her, Kyle Yates, Joey Farias, and myself on her private courts at the YMCA in Bonita Springs. And it was for training, just to get better for the tournament. And I was clearly the weak link, but it was still fun. But my point of the story is, after 2 hours, Jeff, 2 hours of playing doubles with each. I got to play with each one of them, and we just played game after game. Okay, and then after the 2 hours, I thought I was going to die from heat stroke, so I had to take a break. And so Simone, with no break except for maybe taking a sip of water, I'm not kidding you, she beat up on Kyle in singles. Okay, it was competitive. Don't get me wrong, Kyle wasn't just getting mopped up, but she was manhandling him, man. She was just whooping him, and he was
after playing 2 hours of doubles.
Yes, but it gets better, Jeff. It gets better. Then she plays Joey in singles and whooped up on Joey. It was incredible.
Unbelievable, the talent that's coming up nowadays.
I couldn't believe it, man. I witnessed it. No cameras, no video going, nothing on the line, but just practice. Yep. And she was working those boys after 2 hours of doubles. So, I mean, she's just an incredible athlete, and it's no wonder that she's at the top of the game, even being, 39 or 40 or 41, whatever age she is at this point in her career. She's still at the top of the game. So, very impressive. Okay, so let's wrap it up. I appreciate you. I think this has been great. I think it's cool to see that there's going to be a format, kind of a head-to-head clashing of some of the big names in our sport to see who takes top dog.
It looks really interesting. I think it'll be very entertaining for people if these matches can come to fruition.
So what I think we should do is since we've unveiled this format and what we want to see happen, maybe we could do a follow-up after we find out, after some of these matches have been confirmed. Maybe we can come back on and do another one. So, but I appreciate everything, Jeff.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Thanks. I'm glad I was able to give a little bit of insight to some of these older players. So
absolutely. And one last thing before we go, do you have any idea when you think the next tournament in pickleball might kick back up? I mean, is there any inclination?
No. I think USAPA is going to be, very conservative. I don't have any inside information in that, but I'm assuming they're, for liability standpoints and stuff, they'll probably be
pretty cautious,
pretty conservative in that. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody wants to get out and play, but it's
is the village safety concern? Is the villages still not playing at this moment, or do you know
the villages are shut down? Right.
They're shut down right now.
Courts are locked. Yeah.
My goodness, that's got to be devastating to the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
But golf is still going on, but no pickleball.
No pickleball. Well, golf it's a little different setup. You can stay pretty isolated in golf. But all right, Jeff. Well, I appreciate your time, and you tell your wife I said hello, and you just enjoy the rest of your evening. And I appreciate your time coming on.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot.
You got it, Jeff. Take care, man. All right, here we go, guys. We're gonna wrap this thing up.